Hey folks, how would you like to have a program that lets you track the reading minutes for your class and gives you a dashboard of the information that the students are actually collecting? Here's an example of how this would work. Once I have collected data from my students, all my students would show up in the list of students, and I would choose a different student, and the graphs would all redraw. They're related to the student, and you would see what books they're reading. So here's an example of this particular book where this person has read Hatchet twice for two different periods, but there's my total. There's my total by book. There's my total by student, and it actually shows me how those are totaling. That's the total minutes read. And then here's the class summary by month and by class total. I'm going to give you a tutorial on how you can build this with a very simple form that really is only collecting two things: the email address, the book title, and the minutes. The first step in this project is to build a new form. So you go to New, More, Google Forms. And I'm going to go ahead and just build a basic form. First question is book title. Okay? And I'm only, I want to leave that, notice how it popped back to a short answer. I want to leave it as multiple choice. And I want to just actually add other. And I'm going to get rid of this. So basically, I'm going to start off with basically no book choices. We're going to build those as we go. It's required, duplicate, and this is minutes. And it's the same thing, just going to provide, let the students build the number of minutes they read. And I'm going to add a couple of issues there. On minutes, I'm going to go to these three dots and description, and I'm going to say add minutes in increments of 5 minutes. Okay, and I'm also then going to come to this question, put in a description and say, please spell the book title correctly. Okay, and then the form is my book reading log. And when I click over there, that names that. I always want to make sure I'm putting this in the right place, but I knew because of where I built it, it's in the right folder. So that's it. The next thing we need to set up quickly is under the three dots here, the gearbox, excuse me. We want to generally we want to collect email addresses because we're going to do this within a domain, and we're going to restrict it to the domain. So if I go ahead and do that, I'm going to be collecting the email address, so I don't have to have any other names or anything else. That's really all I want to do. I don't need to show anything else here. I could put in a different message saying thanks for your help, because we're building a database here, and I would go ahead and save that. The next step that we need to work on here then is to make sure that you have the Form Ranger add-on. If you don't see this add-on puzzle piece there and have it already installed, you would come over here to the three dots, go to add-ons, and here you would search for Form Ranger and hit enter, and that is the one we're looking for. I already have it, so I don't need to add it. In step 2 of this process, we're now going to actually put in at least one entry into our form so that we can then start working on the spreadsheet. So one of the first things I'm going to do is preview my form, and notice that I have a book title. I'm going to put in my very first book title. Let's say my students are reading Hatchet, and we're telling them to do increments of 5 minutes, and this student just read 5 minutes, so I submit. Now if I go back to my form, I can see that I have one response. I've got Hatchet for for you know, a 5-minute read. And now I'm going to go to the spreadsheet icon. Let me slow down a little bit. Spreadsheet icon right here in my responses. Here's my form where I'm building it. Here's my responses. I want to get to this spreadsheet. We're going to go ahead and open it up, create a new spreadsheet. This shows me the information I have. I have the new form and I've got this data on it, okay? And then I also can see here that it's stored in this reading log tutorial, which is where I want it. Sometimes I check that. So one of the very first things I like to do is to rename form responses to data. And the reason I do that is pretty simple. I have to spell that form responses one correctly when I reference this sheet. And so I want to make sure that I do that correctly. In our next phase, we're going to add a new sheet to this form responses sheet that we've created, the book reading log response sheet. I'm going to click on add a sheet, the little plus sign here at the bottom. Now I have a brand new sheet. I'm going to rename this sheet lists. And I'm going to do a couple things really quickly here. I'm actually going to go ahead and put in the book titles because I'm going to bring them in from the data sheet and minutes. Okay. I then always like to go to view, freeze, and just freeze that top row. So as I start to add data, I can scroll up and down. In cell A2, I'm going to type a formula. I type that in there really quickly. The formula is sort, because I want to sort the data I pull in. Unique, it's going to look for unique values in the data sheet from column C. And when I do that, it pulls in the one book I have there called Hatchet. Now I can take that same formula, grab the bottom right corner, drag it across, and it's going to pull in my minutes. We're now going to use this list as we pull in data by people submitting the form. This lists sheet is going to automatically update with all of the book titles in alphabetical order, all of the minutes sorted by the lowest to the highest. And then we're going to use the Form Ranger add-on back in our form to automatically populate the book lists and the minute list in the form from this list. So our next phase of this project is to get Form Ranger to automatically populate our form list. Notice all it says is other and minutes is other. And I'm back on the questions. I'm building the form. I click here on the add-ons and I start Form Ranger. And it says go ahead and start. And it comes up with it needs me to go ahead and authorize that. So I'm going to authorize it. And I need to allow these things to happen. Some of that was off screen there for you. So now Form Ranger pops up as an add-on that I can run. So it comes in and it says, okay, I want to populate this form element and I want to populate it from a values list. It says, okay, great. Now, what values list are you populating it from? Well, I want to populate it from my most recent file, my most recent spreadsheet, which is this book reading log. So I'm going to select that. And it says, well, which data? Well, the data I'm populating from is this new lists sheet that I set up. And the column header is book titles. That's why I had built the column header. Notice you can see Hatchet shows up there. So I go, okay. And then I'm going to give this a name and call it titles. Okay. And I want to save and populate the question. Now, a Form Ranger is going to automatically populate that question. And notice now it says Hatchet. Now I'm going to go to the minutes, which is my next value list I want to populate. And this time I'm going to create another new values list. Form Ranger is reading that again. The same process occurs. I'm going to use the same spreadsheet. I'm going to use the lists sheet, but this time I want to use the minutes column. And now it's going to read that. It sees that there's one entry, 5 minutes. I say next, and this is minutes. And I want to save and populate. So now I have this set up. I'm going to answer these last two questions. I want that to auto-populate the questions on form submit, and I want to, just in case, have it check every hour and see what's changed here. So now when we add a new, if somebody fills out the form and they add a new book using the other tag, even and adding a new set of minutes, this is going to auto-populate on the form the next time we do that. So we're done with Form Ranger. Let me demonstrate that. I'm going to preview my form. Notice now it says Hatchet and Other. So now I'm going to put in another book called A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. And this student, when they're reading this book, actually read for 15 minutes. So they go ahead and submit. Okay. Now let's go quickly back over here and notice my data sheet populated with, and again, I'm the only person filling this out so far. And notice that the list sheet automatically populated with that new information. Now notice when I come back here and submit another response, notice A Tree Grows in Brooklyn and Hatchet, 5 minutes, 15 minutes. The form has automatically updated itself by Form Ranger reading those reading lists. So as the students submit other, either in book title or minutes, we are automatically building our database of books and the amount of minutes students might read. Now the next step in our tutorial here is how to then take this data and build a dashboard that will allow the teacher to look individually at every student and see a very, very clear picture of their progress. So here's the final step. What you're looking at right now is the dashboard that we're wanting to build so that we can take a look at how our students are doing. So on this particular example, here's the dashboard. I can choose any student that happens to have already submitted, and notice I can see what books they've read, I can see how many. This is highlighting there. I can go to any other student, I see where they are, I see their total number of minutes, and we can probably do some other things like get a total sum of all the minutes read by the whole class and a lot of other fancy things, but this is just the basic list of the dashboard. So where that's coming from is this lists that we are building automatically using this unique formula. As data gets submitted, we build the list. Form Ranger takes the list and populates back to this form. So as the books get added, they show up here for students just to quickly select. So what we do now to get this dashboard over onto your new form that you just created, your new form spreadsheet, you take a copy of this, which I will provide, and you simply click on the dashboard, you click on this drop arrow, and you copy it to. When you do that, it says, okay, copy to. I'm going to go to recent. I know that I want to copy it over to here. It actually comes in to this spreadsheet, completely formatted exactly the way that we want. And I've got this copy of dashboard because I've already done it to show you how this works. So one of the things, obviously I don't see any students here because I don't have this student in here, but when I go to my student, it does show up. Now the reason we have a failed row here is on the example I was copying from, my data row had an extra row in here because I'm using something called Awesome Table to display that. That'll be a different lesson. So what I would need to do to make this work, I have to look at this and say, it says here in this formula, start at C3, we're really starting at C2. And as soon as I make that very quick change, now I can see the only person submitted so far is myself. I've read 2 books, a little bit, and so on the copy of dashboard, that's how that would work out.